Good evening and welcome to our 2018 Sault Ste. Marie Ward 4 debate. Tonight's debate is being held here in Shinwalk Auditorium at Algoma University. We wish to acknowledge that we are here on the lands of the Anishinaabe Nation, and we also acknowledge we are on sacred lands, and through the vision and leadership of Chief Shinwalk, we are on trust lands set aside for the purpose of education. My name is Jasmine Rowley, and I am a video journalist with Sault Today, and I will be acting as the moderator for tonight's debate. As part of their ongoing commitment to our local community, Algoma University, Sault Today, and Shaw TV have partnered to present tonight's event. I would like to run through the format for tonight's debate. All candidates on the ballot for the October 22nd election were invited to take part tonight. The seating and question order for the candidates was decided by a random draw prior to tonight's broadcast. Similarly, questions and their order were decided before tonight's broadcast and prior to the candidates' draw, so the first respondent to each question will be based on luck of the draw. Questions were derived from public surveys administered by Sault Today. Questions will be posed tonight by students currently enrolled in political science courses at Algoma University. Thank you to Peter Couteau, Liz Niche, Jacob Beach, and Grace Tugouche. Once a question has been posed, each candidate will have a 60-second response opportunity. This will be followed by a 30-second right of response from the initial respondent. With each new question, a different candidate will respond first. When you hear a warning chime, we ask that candidates wrap up in under 10 seconds. At the end of 10 seconds, your mic will be turned off. I would like to remind all candidates of a few ground rules. Profanity and interrupting candidates who have the mic will not be tolerated. At any point, as moderator, I may request that a candidate stay on topic. At the outset of the debate, each candidate will have 90 seconds to provide opening remarks. At the end of our debate, each candidate will have 1 minute to provide closing remarks. We would like to thank and welcome the candidates who are joining us this evening: Sarah McCleary, Tim Marsh, Rick Nero, and Marchie Bruni. At this point, we invite opening remarks from our candidates. You each have 90 seconds. We will begin with Sarah McCleary.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Sault Today, Algoma U, and Shaw TV for bringing us on. I am a young mother of 2 here in Sault Ste. Marie. I write for Sault This Week, and I'm a reporter and a columnist for Sault This Week, and I also am the marketing and fundraising coordinator at St. Vincent Place. This summer, I was provided with a actually fantastic opportunity to move to Toronto. And I'm not going to pretend that I didn't consider it. I sat down and thought long and hard about it, and I wrote out pros and cons lists for both staying here and going to Toronto. And when I finished it all up, the pros list for Toronto was significantly longer. And so I felt like, that must be my answer, but something just held me back. And I decided I don't want to run away. I don't want to be one of the people who are leaving the Sault and add to that youth out-migration. Instead, I decided to put my name forward to run for City Council so that the next time somebody like me sits down and makes out that pros and cons list, their list for the Sault is longer for the pros. So that's really what I am aiming to do as a city councillor. I would like to look to the Sault's future, make it a place where young people want to stay, they want to live, and they want to work, and that they're able to do that. And I just really hope that you'll consider giving me the chance to do that. Thank you.
Tim Marsh.
Hello, I'm Tim Marsh. As you know, I'm running for Ward 4 City Council. I'm not doing this because I want to be a politician. I'm doing this because I love this city. I was born here. I've grown and lived in this city my entire life, more specifically in Ward 4. Every opportunity I've had was given to me by the people of this city, and that's why I'm running. I want to give back. I want to give back. I want to be able to create opportunities for others. I want to help grow this community so it's not just a home for myself, but a home for anybody else. You may recognize me, you may not. The fact is I've been working in the hospitality industry for 15 years. There's one main rule in the hospitality industry. Create a fantastic experience for every single person who walks through that door. We should be doing the same with everybody who comes into this city. I want to continue serving you, and I will, one way or another. I just want to do it in a little bit of a different way. I have one main goal, and that goal is to help restore and make this city what I know it can be. I think the best way to do that is is one key, and that's to support each other. Young or old, rich or poor, we just need to support each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Neer?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Algoma University, Sault Ste Marie and Shaw for hosting this event tonight. The role of the city councillors is to represent constituents that elected them to office and to represent all the citizens of the community as well. Councillors must make decisions in the best interest of this community and keep Sault Ste. Marie moving forward. City councillors represent everyone. We make decisions that affect young children, young adults, middle-aged citizens, and seniors. I know what we in my age group are concerned about. I know what it feels like to be concerned about being able to afford a home when costs all around us are increasing. I know what my children who are supporting their own families are concerned about. I have the same concerns as those who have grandchildren about my grandchildren. I know how difficult it is for seniors to stay in their own homes and still be able to afford the cost of staying in that home. I get it. That's why I'm running for re-election. I want to continue to work hard at being a councillor and continue to work hard at helping people find solutions to their problems. I want to continue to be a part of a team that continues to move this city forward. I know we need to continue to look at more efficient ways of delivering our core services. Our staff has done a good job of finding efficiency, but we need to do more. Municipal governments are the only governments that cannot operate at a deficit. So based on the amount of dollars that we budget for, we must provide all the services that are important to you. We all want this, we need it, and we expect it.
Thank you. Marchie Brune?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I thank Algoma University, Shaw TV, and Sault today for hosting this event today. My name is Marchie, and I'm the incumbent for Ward 4, previously known as Ward 5. I've been a resident of Sault Ste. Marie my whole life. Throughout my years, I have been a committed individual who has been involved with the community as a hockey coach, a soccer coach. I served 10 years on the school board trustee, and I served on numerous boards and committees. I'm employed at Ontario Lottery Corporation for 27 years, and I previously worked at Algoma Steel for 13. I've been a highly committed and passionate councillor for the past 8 years, and I've only missed one council meeting. I take my role as a councillor very seriously. I understand the importance of keeping our community alive and moving forward with new initiatives. Some of my priorities, if re-elected in Ward 4, will be continue to serve and respond to my constituents' phone calls, emails, and visit constituents on a regular basis, keeping taxes as low as possible for local residents, especially our seniors with limited income, as well as small commercial and small industrial businesses. Continue to be involved on local boards and committees, and continue to promote Sault Ste. Marie by working along with key stakeholders to attract more investment, generate more opportunities for our youth to remain in the Soo. With all this in mind, I ask Ward 4 residents to once again show that I've earned your trust and vote on October 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you. We now invite the first question to our Ward 4 candidates.
What is your vision with regard to the taxes and fees individuals, businesses, and property owners now pay in Sault Ste. Marie?
I'll start with Sarah.
So I completely understand taxes are high. I'm a homeowner myself. We pay a lot for taxes for our homes. Business owners, I know it's a hardship for them. I am committed to keeping, I'll start with this. I don't think it's feasible to say that we will freeze taxes. If I get in there and look at numbers and it's possible, then that's what I'll do. I don't think it's likely. So I think what the biggest issue is making sure that we get the services that we're paying for. So I'm committed to keeping any tax raises that do possibly have to happen as low as absolutely possible to make sure that we don't lose out on services. Because when I'm going to the doors, what I'm hearing more than tax issues, issues with paying the taxes, are that people want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. So we don't want to see taxes going up and services going down. I think that's the biggest thing that we need to focus on and that council needs to commit to.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
Yes, no, yes, no. The fact is, our taxes, especially our industrial taxes, are some of the highest in Ontario, and it sucks, to put it simply. But I'm with Sarah in the fact that to say, I believe But I lost my train of thought, so.
So can we freeze taxes? Can we go to zero? I don't think so. I would agree with Sarah's comments that people could probably accept a cost of living, a minimum tax increase, if the services came back as quality and we were efficient as we could. We have to remember that if you freeze taxes, if you pass on a 0% increase, our taxes may increase anyways. They may even go down because our taxes are based on assessment. So when the tax rate is multiplied by the assessment, it gives you your final tax bill. And even if we're at zero, if your assessment went up that, if we don't increase your taxes and your assessment goes up that year, you're going to get a tax increase.
Thank you. Mr. Bruni.
Thank you. My vision on taxes, I would like to see it stay below cost of living. I think right now we have approximately 40% of our budget goes to police, fire, conservation, Algoma Public Health, and DSAB, which is social services. That's 40%. But if you want to look at our infrastructure, we need to spend more money on our infrastructure. Just last night, for instance, major flooding occurred on the Hill, Johnson, Elliott. Same people got flooded. We need to put more money in our infrastructure. So if we can keep our cost of living rate below, I think it would benefit that we can work on our roads, we can work on our sewers, and we can work on our streets. So to go with a zero balance, I think it would be very, very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now give a 30-second right of response to Mrs. McCleary.
I don't think there's too much more to add. I would just point out, I think it was Councillor Nero who mentioned before that municipalities can't operate at a deficit, and I think that's something that everybody needs to keep in mind. And honestly, with all of the doors that I've knocked on, like I said, everybody is more concerned about getting the services that they're paying for. It's been more candidates, not even among us, but candidates throughout the city that are making taxes an issue. That isn't even what's being brought up to me most often at the doors. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
Thank you. We will now move on to the second question.
What will you do to help improve Sault Ste. Marie's economy, create more jobs, and make the city an attractive place to do business?
And we start with you, Mr. Marsh.
So when it comes to increasing the economy, essentially businesses come to where the people want to be. In order to bring businesses here, we have to make it a destination. We have to help support things sorry, I know I'm having an issue again. We have to support things like Bonsu, the WTF Festival, the Rotary Fest, things like that, to the downtown associations, street parties, things like that bring a sense of community. Those are what businesses want to be a part of. That's where they want to be. They'll go where the people are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nero.
So the short answer to improve economy is economic diversification. Our role, economic diversification is the role of the Economic Development Corporation and the Innovation Center. Our role as council, we can do many things. We can make sure that there's enough serviced land. We need to control taxes. We need to ensure that development is easy process for development to occur, for an entrepreneur to come through. But we need to work with all the agencies to make sure that everything flows properly. Services, the infrastructure is there. Again, utility costs need to be respectable costs, and we need to keep supporting the Economic Development Corporation and the Innovation Center.
Thank you. Mr. Bruni.
Thank you. And just to concur with Mr. Nero, we need to work with EDC and the Innovation Center. They're the ones that are out there looking for companies to move into Sault Ste. Marie. But how are these companies going to move into Sault Ste. Marie? Well, obviously, we have to reduce our large industrial tax and our small industrial tax, our small commercial tax. We are the highest in Northern Ontario if you compare North Bay, Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, Timmins, and Thunder Bay. Those are our competitors. We need to reduce. This way, businesses want to come here. Also, I think we have to work with all the agencies as a group. Future Sault Ste. Marie, that's part of the project that we have on board right now. It's a 3-year project, and hopefully it will continue and foster into good news stories for the Sioux.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
So one of the most important things that I've heard from people who wanted to start a business here or who have is that the red tape is outrageous, which was alluded to. So I think that it's important to really try to streamline that process, whether that's working with city staff or the EDC or a combination. But I also think that it's important to build on what Tim said. You know, jobs come where people want to live. So we need to make the city a place where, you know, whether it's through arts and culture, like he mentioned, or environmental initiatives that make people proud to live here. A number of different ways that we can do that. We need to make the city a place where when businesses look at us, they aren't seeing our population constantly decline. They need to see it at least holding steady, if not rising. Otherwise, why do they want to come here? So I think that that is perhaps the biggest issue that we need to address first to improve business investment in the Sioux, is show that our population is at least holding steady.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh, you now have a 30-second right of response.
So essentially, there's one other thing to bringing, other than bringing jobs to the city. It's giving the opportunity to people to create jobs in our city. That's what things like EDC. I know I was a summer student who took use of one of those programs back when I was younger. It works, and I've been interested in entrepreneurship ever since. It's something that we have to continue growing at and working towards.
Thank you. We will now hear our third question for the candidates.
What is your position on Sault Ste. Marie's bid for a ferrochrome smelter? What are the economic benefits and environmental and health risks?
Sorry, can you repeat that question, please?
What is your position on Sault Ste. Marie's bid for a ferrochrome smelter? What are the economic benefits and environmental and health risks?
My position is that I fully support it on the condition that the environmental conditions are met. This whole plant project we're looking at 5 to 7 years out, and we're almost at a decision stage, and the rest of that time is going to be spent on getting certificates and permits to operate that plant, and that's what's going to address all the environmental issues. So I'm fully supportive of that. I think it is a game changer for Sault Ste. Marie, but again, with the provision that the environmental controls are on that plant. In today's world, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. It will be an expensive venture for Noront, whoever builds that plant, but the environmental controls have to be there.
Thank you. Mr. Bruning.
Thank you. I totally support them coming here. I think it would be an advantage to the city of Sault Ste. Marie. The city would expand. But as Councillor Nero said, the environmental items have to be addressed. By them coming here, you'll be looking at approximately 2,000 jobs indirect and 200 jobs direct, high-paying jobs. Imagine that coming to the Sioux here. You're looking at approximately, possibly up to over 1,000 people moving in, families. That would be a bonus to our city, and it would be a great for us. But again, let's go back to the environmental. We need to make sure those are all addressed, and that is governed by the ministry, so hopefully things go well for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
From a personal perspective, I personally don't want to see it here. From an economic development of the Sioux perspective, I completely agree with the two councillors that as long as economic conditions environmental conditions are met, then it would be good for the Sioux. We do need more jobs. I would never deny that. So as long as it will genuinely bring permanent jobs to the Sioux, and these aren't brought in from out of town and temporary jobs, then as long as they can meet those environmental conditions, then I would support it.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
I think we're all on the same page. The fact is, the last question was just about how to bring more jobs. If we were to say no to a business, a large business such as this, to coming in, what is it going to tell every other business trying to come here? Everybody's right. The fact is, we need to protect our environment. Our ecotourism is a huge part of who we are, and we need to support that. And if the Ferrochrome plant can't meet those conditions, then yeah, I'm going to have to say it would have to go. But right now, I think it's fantastic for the city. Thanks.
And Mr. Nero, you have a 30-second right of response.
I would just add that, again, the public consultation process, when it starts, it's a very important part of this whole concept, and I would hope that the council of the day is very involved and that we as a public are involved and that this whole consultation process addresses all the concerns that anybody may have in the community.
Thank you. We will now invite our next question.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. I have one question to ask you for while you're running for municipal office. What will you do to help ensure good, accountable governance on city council?
We start with you, Mr. Breen.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important that we represent our constituents the best that we can. As I gave you the example earlier, the 17 phone calls from 8 o'clock on because of flooding. I think councillors have to react to those phone calls, visit the constituents. Also, I believe we need to be a little bit more transparent. Transparent in our meetings, transparent in our voting. The voting records should be recorded, should be made public, and I believe that might be coming up in December or January. One concern that I've been receiving by several people is the future Sault Ste. Marie. The meetings are not open to the public, especially the committee meetings, and we need to open it up for transparency for people to hear what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
So the one thing that I've heard from at the doors when I've been going around more than any is the question, is this the last time I'm going to see you or hear from you for the next 4 years? So I don't think it's been directed at either of these men. In fact, Rick is the one person who was named as having responded to constituents reaching out. But I think there is an issue with city councillors not responding to their constituents when they're contacted, whether it's email or phone or what have you. So it's really important, I think, to respond to each and every inquiry, even if it's just a brief, okay, thanks, I got your message. But one other thing that I plan to do is invite input, whether that is online via Facebook, Twitter, what have you, or I actually am committing to at least once a month going out and knocking on doors, even when I'm not campaigning, to actively look for feedback on what people think of how I'm doing and what they would like to see different.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
Yeah. So when it comes to transparency and honesty and everything, to me it comes simple. I don't have the ability to lie. I can't even lie to my wife's face. But the fact is, if elected to council, the fact is I'm going to have to vote on a lot of decisions. In my right mind, I can't vote without getting the input of everybody else that I'm already representing. In order to get their input, I have to be transparent about the decisions we're thinking about making. And so transparency and everything just seems like an obvious thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Nero.
I certainly believe in this last term and the term before, the last two terms, of course, that this council has been completely transparent. As Councillor Bruni has mentioned, soon, I think, again in December, we will be going to a recorded vote for all decisions that council is voting on. All committees of council are open to the public. If there's committees that are closed, they are not a committee of council. So any committee of council by law, but in the Municipal Act, is an open meeting. Our in-camera sessions are videotaped, And you should remember that anything that we discuss in camera, in closed, has to be approved in open. So it's coming back out once it's negotiated and closed. We have hired an integrity commissioner. We went through the process. It was an open process, and we have that in place now for accountability.
Thank you. We're out of time. Yeah. You now have a 30-second right of response, Mr. Bruni.
Thank you very much. I'm going to disagree with Councillor Nero a bit regarding the open meetings. Future Sault Ste. Marie, we invested $444,000 into that. And people want to go to these committees and meetings just to listen, just to get the information, but they're not welcome to go in there. So I think it's very, very important that we can. Also, Council Review Committee, I think councillors should be there, at least 2, rotate them, and they're there. This way they can see what's happening. Thanks.
Thank you. And our next question, please.
Thank you.
What will you do to ensure a reasonable minimum standard of living for people in your ward, including income security, access to affordable, quality housing, and food security?
Mrs. McCleary.
So that's a really good question. Like I said, I work at St. Vincent's, so I see the impacts of this day to day in the shelter and the food bank and everything. I think it's really important to make sure that people do have access to that, to those kinds of services. So I would love to see those kinds of services moving more toward in Ward 4, because I think right now they're all pretty much in 2. So that's important, I think, for those who need access to those services. But I would love to see the need for those services to decline. And I think a lot of that comes down to making sure that we don't have to cut services, don't have to cut funding to, DSAB or those kinds of organizations that the city works with. I think that, like I said, it comes down to I would love to be able to freeze taxes, but we can't, because we need to make sure that we're not cutting those really important services that constituents need.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
So I have friends who are on housing and special assistance and whatnot, but and it's difficult for them. I know it's difficult for them. It's hard to find a place. I personally know somebody who's currently living at Women's Crisis with her 2 kids because right now she doesn't have anywhere to live. It's a difficult position to be in. The fact is, it's a lot of that stuff is, I believe it's mandated partially by the provincial government, but it's something we as a community need to work on. It's something we have to improve just as a whole. And the fact is man, that's nerve-wracking. I'm past there.
Okay. Thank you.
Freezing up this time around.
So housing, yes, it is not the primary function of City Council. Our budget gives some $18 million to our local DSABs who are involved in affordable housing and Ontario Works and all of the social services aspects of it. But there are some things that Council has done. We just expanded or extended a program for affordable housing. If you put up units, rental units, there's a tax rebate or incentive purpose of 75% the first year, 50%, and then 25%, and then that development goes to full taxes. We've recently, in Council, we've decided that any houses that are coming up for tax sale, that once that's considered, we're going to pass it through social services to see if they can use it for affordable housing. So there are some things that count directly, but most of it falls under the social services department.
Mr. Bruni.
Thank you. I sit on the DSAB board, and last year we provided 30 units, and now we're working on 25 more units for next year. It's a small difference, but we're moving forward. I think with all school boards, colleges, universities, for the reasonable standard of living, let's provide a cheaper cost for our bus fares for the students. I think it's very, very important. Social Services has started a job training at the Bush Plane. And this is helping their life skills and their job training, so they can go out and go in the workforce. Also, Social Services, DSAB, they just introduced 8 days to find employment in 8 days. How many jobs they can find in 8 days? They found 20, which is a very big, huge success, and the team got together and they went out and did it. So, thanks.
Thank you. And we will now give a 30-second right of response to Mrs. McCleary.
So just to touch on kind of what was mentioned about these kinds of services primarily being mandated by the provincial government, that is absolutely true. But I think it's also important to remember that part of a city councillor's job is to lobby the provincial government for funding that is needed in this city, both provincial and federal. So that's definitely something that I would be jumping into with, both feet, that we need to be trying to work with the provincial government to get that funding here in our city.
Thank you. I now invite our next question.
To get around the city, cars, trucks, buses, and bicycles need good roads. What are your planning priorities for the city's roadways? Further, what will you do to improve public transit?
And we start with you, Mr. Marsh.
Perfect. Now, when it comes to the roads, we all know we need improvement. I'm not sure if we fell behind back in the day and we're still working to catch up. But the fact is, it's not just so much about the roads, it's also about our active transportation, walking, running. Our sidewalks infrastructure, we just did pretty much all of People's Road. But the fact is, the sidewalk right beside it, you can barely walk on it without tripping. It's not just about the road infrastructure as that, and then when it comes to bus transportation, I said it just in our debate earlier today as well, and the fact is, it has improved. From what they'll probably tell you, there is a plan, a 6 and a 12-month process in place, and they'll probably touch on it more now that I'm out of time.
Thank you. Mr. Nero.
Obviously, we have to do a lot of work on our roads. We have many kilometers of roads that have to be resurfaced or reconstructed, and we do have regular amounts that are budgeted every year. As far as our transit system is concerned, we just implemented new routes. The criteria that was used was a 5-minute walk or a 450 meter to a bus stop. Transit is very difficult to get to everybody in every location. So once the consultant came with this plan, we implemented. Our staff is monitoring it. If there's changes to be made, they can be made, they will be made. We have the Accessibility Advisory Committee, which looks at all the issues that have to do with transit. And most recently in council, we're looking at an Uber-type bus call-out for small buses to hook up.
Thank you. Mr. Bruni.
Thank you. Going door to door, taxes, and people are concerned about our roads. Our roads are not good shape. We need major, major infrastructure on our roads. If you go, well, I won't even mention the roads because we should all be embarrassed because our roads are deteriorating, unfortunately. But we need to spend money on it. Our infrastructure is weak. We need to review the cycling master plan. It is outdated. We need to renew it. Our transportation, transit system, as Mr. Marsh has mentioned, it will be reviewed in 6 months and then in 12 months. I was a strong advocate to not cancel Sunday night busing, and it was defeated, but it came back. They had the consultant's report, and they initially put it back on plan. So I think those are the ones. Oh, and to expand the hub trail. I think it's very, very important that we do expand the hub trail to the west up to Gooley Avenue.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
So there's a lot in that question to kind of touch on some things. One thing that I would like to see done differently is our winter road maintenance. Rather than putting so much sand on the road that then, the sand does damage to the roads and the vehicles, and then clearing the sand does damage to the roads. I can't remember offhand the kind of, it's some sort of like a fruit juice essentially mixture that you can put on the roads. And yes, it's a little bit more expensive than sand, but it doesn't damage the roads as much. So long term, your costs go down. I would love to at least look into that. And then it's also important to get cars off the roads. If we had fewer cars on the road, then the roads wouldn't get damaged as much. So that comes back to improving trails and making it safer and more convenient to go cycling from point A to point B, or rollerblade, or even walk, because sometimes it's not that convenient to walk. And then in my 7 seconds left, I do have ideas to get transit improved. I've been hearing that it's not working, the changes that were recently made, and I would love to see.
We will now give a 30-second right of response to Mr. Marsh.
Continue with the transit. Now, when I say it has improved, I'm still not saying it's perfect, but the fact is, back when I was younger, my first job was at the Recreational. It was a 5-minute drive away. In order for me to get there, it was an hour and 20-minute drive for the bus. It's now that I'm on People's Road, it does go up and down. So there is improvements. The fact is, we're going to be listening to the people who ride the bus, the bus drivers, the people who are taking the people. That's what we need to do in order to improve it.
Thank you. We now invite our next question.
What are your priorities for enhancing recreational opportunities for people of all ages in your ward to keep them active, healthy, and happy?
That's for you, Mr. Nero. Yes.
Okay. So I think the city has done a very good job in our major sports recreation activities section. Like, I'm talking about the arenas, I'm talking about hockey, soccer, baseball, swimming. I think we've really excelled there. We have some good facilities, and public attends those facilities. What we've started to do with our parks is go into our fringe sports, and those like frisbee golf, pickleball, and those kinds of activities. Those are the ones that our staff has been working on. We're looking at our parks master plan. We're looking at what could fit within those parks and increase those types of activities.
Thank you. Mr. Bruni.
We have at least 75 parks in the Soo here, and I believe they are underutilized. What we need to do is the parks that are surrounding neighborhoods, we should be talking to the neighbors. We should be asking them, what would you want to see in the park? If it's playground equipment, because maybe in that area there might be a lot of younger children that would use the equipment. So I think that's important. I think we need to repair our tennis courts. Because more and more people are playing this sport called pickleball. So I think it would be very, very important to make sure that tennis courts are in good shape. Our outdoor ice rinks, we have to continue. We need one in the east end, because there's only the one in the central area and one just off Queen Street. So I think it's important that we continue with the ice rinks. The tennis courts need improvement, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
One thing that I've been speaking about a lot lately is that I would love to see a youth center set up here in town. We've been without one for about 20 years now, and I don't think that that's right, especially given that youth have been calling for one. So I think that there are ways to go about it, that we could invest a lot of money, or there are ways that we can do it that has very minimal investment. So I would love to get that set up for the youth. And kind of to touch on what was mentioned about the parks and converting things into the fringe sports, I drove by a little park today, I can't remember the street name, but it has like a little RC track in it. I didn't know we had one of those. So it's great to do that. I definitely think it's a fantastic idea, but I also think we need to promote it more, because I think I'm pretty aware of what's going on in town, but I had no idea that was there. So I think that that's important, is going out to the community, finding out what can be changed and what they'd like to see differently, but then also promoting things that have happened.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
Yeah, this park you're actually speaking of is on Spruce Street, and it's fantastic to watch. It's a lot of fun. But the fact is, if we want to get kids out there and active again, it's not just about hockey. Hockey's fantastic, but our biggest activated area is the Bellevue Park. And I would love to see the McMeekin Center redone and then activated a little bit more. Right now, there's a large amount of property behind it, and it just has 2 old tennis courts. I would love to see that become like almost a Western hub of activity. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now give a 30-second right of response to Mr. Nero.
A couple of things I neglected to mention. Of course, we need to continue with the hub trail. We have a bicycle plan in place for the city. We need to look at the expansion of those types. We're looking at Northern Avenue to hook up with Sackville in that area. And we recently have accepted a proposal for a skating trail to maybe happen in the Clerk Park. So those are, 2 or 3 more things that we are doing.
Thank you. We invite our next question.
What will you do to help improve public safety and crime prevention in your ward and across Sault Ste. Marie?
Mr. Bruni.
Well, I'm very fortunate that I sit on the police board, and we hired a police chief. And I think we're on the right track in the sense that we gave him a mandate to try to eliminate, to reduce drugs off the street. He formed this project team called HEAT, and in 2 months, over 50% increase in charges. I think that's very, very important right now. Also, officers are working more of a different shift, 3 p.m. to 3 a.m., because there's a lot of drugs and a lot of break and entries into homes, cars, so there's more officers. Also, it was just introduced that there's a jump office, satellite office in the Station Mall with 2 more officers going to be there. So I think we're in the right, we're going in the right direction. Let's continue.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
A few weeks ago, I stepped out my front door with my kids, and we walked out into the front yard, and look at that, there's a needle. And I know that I'm not the only one who's experienced this. So absolutely, we need to address the crime and the drug via the police force and increase the the police presence in the areas where we know these things are happening. That's definitely important, and I'm definitely supportive of that. But I also think that it's really important to keep in mind that we need to try to address these issues upstream. So what we need to do is look at the causes of these issues, whether it's, often poverty leads to health issues, mental health issues, and then those lead to getting into crime and drugs. Food insecurity lead to those issues, one way or another. So these are the issues that we need to address so that long term, these issues are resolved. We can't just rely on policing.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
I completely understand the concern with safety. The fact is, I used to not even lock my doors. I actually stopped locking my garage door when I lived on Moody Street because there was a string of break-in and entries all through the garages there for about 2 weeks straight, and I was just tired of fixing the door. The fact is, sugar comes. The fact is, we need to support our frontline services. We're not just support the police, the EMS, everything like that. But we have to support them as well, not just through money, but through the frontline services, those safe injection sites, those the things like that, to build up and support them so that they're not always responding to all those issues, that they have frontline support already there.
Thank you. Mr. Nero.
So I would agree with those that believe that the crime is a direct result of the mental health issue and the addiction issue. I certainly agree with that. We need to bring the groups that are working on this, that are specifically involved in addiction, the Algoma Public Health Unit that works with this all the time. It was good news that we heard that police services decided to do a satellite office in Station Mall, of course. I think the work that the Neighborhood Resource Center on Gore Street continues, and it's my understanding that we may be, or the police services is looking maybe at a second location. So that work is a little different than the satellite station that we're looking at Station Mall. This works directly at the root of the problem. We have all kinds of agencies that work out of the Neighborhood Resource Center to address addiction and prostitution.
Great, thank you. You now have a 30-second right of response, Mr. Bruni.
Thank you very much. We have over 19 agencies that can get together and form a committee and get the best information. They are the experts, and they can work with fire, they can work with the police, they can work with EMS. Those three groups need training and they need the equipment. And hopefully we can all work together as one and move forward and try to eliminate this.
Thank you. Our next question, please.
Hello. I'd like to ask you this question. What will you do to help protect and enhance Sault Ste. Marie's natural environment, its air, water, and land?
And we start with Mrs. McCleary.
That's a really good question that I am very passionate about. I mean, there's a reason that I admitted my personal stance about the ferrochrome, right? So one thing that I would absolutely love to see implemented here, whether I end up on council or not, is expansion of our recycling program. Council fairly recently committed to spending a few $1 million on getting a new dump developed. So if we can just add to our recycling program number 5 plastics, which are quite easy to find sellers for, so it shouldn't cost anything extra above what we are, or not significantly anyway, above what we're spending on recycling right now. As well as food waste, because food waste is one of the biggest, highest impact item in the dumps. I would love to see us expand that so that we can extend the life of our current dump or the new dump that we're going to have to set up, because ours is, I think, almost done. For one simple part of the answer.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
Now, like I said earlier, ecotourism is something that
We're saving your time, don't worry.
is having all sorts of issues today.
Okay, we can move to Mr. Nero.
Let me come back. Okay, so I think the biggest area that the city could get involved with in this issue is the tree planting and green spaces that we have in the city. We have a policy with development that any development happens, we plant trees. They have to plant trees back on the property, 1 tree per property. Our planning department has policies in place for conserving wetlands. You can't build on wetlands, and we're conserving that part of it. And we need to continue to look at our green spaces if we can increase them, because they're just people want them. Let me put it that way. It is something that people are after. So that's how we can do it.
Thank you. Third time's a charm. Would you like to try again, Mr. Marsh?
I'm going to hold on to it this time, so I know. Now, as I was saying, the fact is ecotourism is something that we have to, that is a big contributor to our city, and we need to support that. To keep it, things like the Ferrochrome plant that can possibly detriment that are things that we have to hold accountable. And yeah, I only had 30 seconds that time. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Bruni?
Thank you very much. Well, to beautify, what Sarah did mention, I mean, our recycling program, I believe, is slightly behind. We only take, I believe it's level 2, up to level 2. I think we need to increase that. Blind River takes more recycling than we do. And so we need to improve on that. We need to improve on the beauty of our city. For example, sidewalks with the grass overgrowing onto the curb. I think we need to take a little bit more pride, especially when people coming off the bridge. We need to beautify areas like that, so it's more welcoming to our tourists. We have St. Mary's River. It's a beautiful river. We need to promote that more. It's water. Should be more people fishing there. So we're improving, but of course at a snail's pace.
Thank you. And we'll now give a 30-second right of response to Mrs. McCleary.
So kind of building on what Rick said, I do agree that we do need to get into, kind of the tree planting and greening of the community. And there are a lot of grants that the city can be applying for to help with that. I know, for example, TD has the green program, and Canada Trees, I think is the name of the organization. They have one as well that they work with communities. So we can definitely expand. We don't need to only spend city funds. We can look for outside grants for that.
Thank you. And we will now invite the final question to our Ward 4 candidates.
I'm sorry.
What will you do to enhance opportunities for young people in Sault Ste. Marie and keep more of them here after high school graduation?
And we'll start with you, Mr. Marsh.
Make sure it's working this time. The fact is, lots of people leave. In order to keep people here, we have to start building industries that aren't just the steel industry. Trades are essential to every economy, especially this one right now, but we need to start growing. We need to start branching out to technology, to arts and culture. And when I say arts and culture, I'm not just saying painting and things like that. I'm talking television, film, comedy, spoken word, written word, things like that. We need to start building that culture, and it'll start bringing more jobs and diverse jobs. It's not about just bringing jobs here. We can bring as many minimum wage jobs as we want. It's about bringing living wage jobs here to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nero.
So the short answer is economic diversification. We've all heard the responses that we should have the post-secondary institutions talking with the private sector, making sure that the programs are in place so that our young people can get in the right programs and fill the proper jobs. That's all good, and that's all happening. But we need to diversify the economy if we're going to have those kinds of jobs and prepare our workforce for that. I've supported Future Sault Ste. Marie, who's working on economic diversity and growth as one of their pillars. They're going to be working with that. There's young professionals working on that issue. City Council put $444,650 some towards that. It was not new money. It was reallocated from the Economic Development Corporation, and it's a 3-year project, and we hope to.
Thank you. Mr. Bruni.
I understand youth migration because both of my kids work out of town. But I think where does it start? I think it starts at the secondary level of high schools with the guidance counselors. They're well aware of what jobs are out there, 2 years, 3 years projection. So I think it's very, very important. Then you work with Algoma University, you work with Sault College, you work with Lake State. Trades are a shortage today. SR Steel had a major downtime. We had to bring in tradespeople from out of town. We have to encourage our youth that these jobs are available. They're available in Sault Ste. Marie, which is very important. So that's one area that I think we have to concentrate on. Work with our colleges, work with our universities, have the programs available, and they're projecting, they know what jobs will be available in 2, 3, 4 years.
Thank you. Mrs. McCleary.
I think of all of my friends from high school, I am one of 3 of us who are left here in the Soo. Everybody else has gone to Toronto, Ottawa, what have you. So I think because your question addresses leaving after high school rather than after college or university, jobs are absolutely part of it. I mean, obviously when you're finishing high school, you're looking to the future, you're trying to figure out where you're going to work. But I think a lot of it comes down to showing the youth of the city that the city does care about them and that we're not just focusing on the older generations. So I think that the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee is a really great first step towards that. He's getting the young people involved, finding out what they want, but I think there needs to be more proactive, seeking out their input. What do you want to see here? And I think a lot of it comes down to lifestyle. So again, setting up a youth center I think would be a great first step, but there's definitely more to it than that. I think that it's the lifestyle in the Soo here that we need to really push to promote.
Thank you. And we will now give a 30-second right of response to Mr. Marsh.
Now, I was just saying, geez, I'm just having no luck with these things today. Now, as I was saying, the fact is, it's not just about bringing, convincing people to stay. It's about giving them a reason to stay. It's about, geez, that's a long time. It's about creating a community that people want to live in, want to stay in, and that they love.
Thank you. At this point, we invite closing remarks from our candidates. You will each have 1 minute, and we will begin with Mr. Nero.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that during the next term of council, we must continue to address economic diversification. It is the key to a strong economy and the creation of jobs. By supporting the Economic Development Corporation and the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Centre, they can continue to help existing businesses grow and continue in their pursuit of new business. When we continue to drive economic development, we continue to address the loss of assessment. We continue to positively impact jobs, youth out-migration, stability of infrastructure, and tax increases. Going forward, I will continue working to maintain services and our quality of life while keeping tax increases to a minimum. I will continue to work with city staff to identify further efficiencies in all areas of our operations. With many residents on fixed incomes, I'm sensitive to everyone's ability to pay. On October 22nd, I'm asking for your support to allow me to continue working for you in Ward 4 and for the city of Sault Ste. Marie as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bruni.
Thank you. In closing, thank you to everyone who took the time and effort to prepare and ask the questions for tonight's debate. As a councillor for the past 8 years, I have met with so many people and listened to so many of your concerns and suggestions. I know that our council needs to work on more issues and be working together. We will do our best. We need to focus on the youth, road conditions, transportation, city growth, our small industrial, small commercial tax, and keeping taxes at the bare minimum. I appreciate all the positive feedback and support I am receiving from my current and new constituents of Ward 4 during my campaign. I am dedicated and hardworking, an individual who provides community leadership. If re-elected again, my promise will be to continue to work hard and be the voice of Ward 4 constituents. I will bring your concerns forward to Council, and we will work together. On October 22nd, re-elect Marchie Bruni.
Thank you, Mrs. McCleary.
So thank you to everybody who came out and for the really fantastic questions. I'm really hoping that whoever goes on to council this time, and obviously I hope that's me, I'm hoping that we can look not 4 years in the future. We don't need to be concerned about how is this going to impact my chances of re-election. I want to be looking 20 years in the future. How is this going to be impacting my kids and their lifestyle and their future? I think that, you know, I'm one of the first people who will say, yes, this city needs more jobs. Absolutely, I will never deny that. But I also think that we need to look beyond that. We need to look at quality of life and lifestyle here, and that's, I think a lot of that comes down to getting some new ideas on City Council, bringing some new voices, and kind of shaking things up. I've been hearing at the doors, you know, the city's fallen into a bit of a rut lately, and I'd like to try to help pull it out.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh.
Now, I'm sure you can say the same, but I love this city. But it feels like we're standing still, like we're never moving forward or growing. It's hard for me to pick apart this city because I love it so much. I consider myself a nostalgist. It's hard for me not to look at the past fondly. I think back to when the power went out for 3 days straight. I watched my neighborhood come together, watch kids of all ages play hide and seek until they went pitch black out, and even longer. And I remember Bonsu. It was so magical back then. Now I don't blame the city for what's happened to Bonsu over the years. It started to decline as far back as 2003. But we all watched it suffer. We did nothing. Now I know Bonsu still isn't what we remember it to be, but it took on new management last year. And last year was the best year I've seen in a long time. And I think that's what happens when you put someone in charge who actually cares. So on October 22nd, vote for somebody who actually cares. Tim Marsh.
Thank you. On behalf of Algoma University, Sault Today, and Shaw TV, I would like to thank all of our candidates for taking part in this debate. We wish each of you the best in the remaining campaign period. I would like to thank the partners who presented this evening's debate, Shaw TV and its staff and volunteers who are here to televise tonight's debate, Sault Today for helping to organize the debate, collecting questions from the public, and streaming tonight's event online, Algoma University for hosting the debate, and its students of political science for asking the questions tonight. Thank you to Mio's Furniture Fashions for supplying the stage furniture for us for the debate as well. Finally, we would like to thank everyone here in Shingwalk Auditorium at Algoma University or those viewing at home for joining us this evening. We hope that this discussion has helped better inform you about each of the candidates and their respective platforms. We encourage all eligible voters to exercise their democratic right on October 22nd and have their voices heard in Sault Ste. Marie's municipal election. Thank you for joining us, and good night.